The drama begins by showing Kim Yo-han, a trainee at the prosecutor's office who is assigned to go undercover in a gambling den to gather information on Young-jun, the owner of the Skin Nation company and leader of the biggest gang in South Korea. The mission is illegal, but Yo-han must complete it in order to pass a test and become a prosecutor. As part of the stakeout, Yo-han is forced to participate in gambling in order to avoid drawing suspicion. In the first round, he tries to win big and earn a lot of money, but the owner of the gambling den, Jo Hee-do, orders one of his men, Kim Woo-song, to cheat. Yo-han becomes caught up in the heat of the game and risks all his money, unaware that he is being tricked by Woo-song. He ends up losing all his money in the round. Yo-han was deep in the thralls of gambling, willing to risk even his house certificate to continue the game. His friend, Hong Jae-soon, tried to intervene and offer him money to leave the gambling hall, but he was determined to see it through. As he prepared to re-enter the gambling room, he was stopped by another player, Oh Soo-yeon, who begged him to run away with her because she had learned that the police were coming to raid the establishment. But Yo-han, cool and collected, refused her offer and returned to the game. Unfortunately, Yo-han soon discovered that he had lost the person he had been after, Young-jun. Determined not to give up, Yo-han began secretly photographing his opponents, suspecting that they were cheating. His suspicions were confirmed when the police arrived to carry out a raid, sending everyone into a panic as they tried to escape. But Yo-han remained calm and surrendered to the authorities, even as Hee-do and Young-jun managed to slip away. Upon arriving at the police station, Yo-han is released after explaining to the officer that he is a trainee from the prosecutor's office on duty. He then returns to his modest home, where he lives with his grandmother, Shin Dal-soo, after the death of his father, Kim Tae-soo, a prosecutor who was killed by someone. Not long after, Prosecutor Jin Yong and Detective Bi Young-jim, Yo-han's supervisor and Tae-soo's former colleague, come to discuss his failed mission. Jin Yong then asks Yo-han to investigate Lee Tae-gwon, one of Young-jun's confidants, who has evidence of his gambling activities on video. As Tae-gwon is currently incarcerated in Songju prison, Jin Yong gives Yo-han time to consider the mission before deciding whether to accept it. One night, Jin Yong is attacked in the parking lot after a meeting with high-ranking prosecutors. He is injured, but survives the attack. At the same time, Yo-han is kidnapped and held captive in a safe house. When he wakes up, he finds that his hands and feet have been bound and his mouth forced open. Hee-do arrives and begins to torture him using dentist equipment, demanding that Yo-han pay compensation for the closure of his gambling den after the police raid. Hee-do threatens to harm Yo-han's grandmother, Shin Dal-soo, and have him removed from the trainee list if he does not pay. Yo-han is faced with a difficult decision as he tries to find a way to protect his loved ones and himself. After being tortured and released by Hee-do, Yo-han goes to Young-jim's house in bloodied clothes to tell him what had happened. Young-jim advises him to refuse Jin Yong's mission, as the conditions in prison will be even more dangerous and he could face more severe torture. Soon after, Yo-han receives news that his grandmother's stall has been attacked and rushes home. When he finds that Dal-soo is alive, he is relieved, but sees that the stall has been severely damaged in the attack. To his surprise, Hee-do is at his house, being treated kindly by Dal-soo because he had pretended to help her during the attack on the stall. Before leaving, Hee-do threatens Yo-han to pay the compensation immediately or he will torture him again and harm Dal-soo. Yo-han is faced with the difficult decision of how to protect his loved ones and himself while also trying to fulfill his duty as a trainee prosecutor. The next day, Yo-han meets with Jin Yong and Young-jim to tell them that he has decided to resign from the mission due to his concerns for his grandmother's safety. Jin Yong becomes angry and tells Yo-han that he will never be able to become a prosecutor if he does not have the courage to fight against criminals. Young-jim reminds Jin Yong that after Yo-han's previous mission failed, many of their comrades have been attacked and it is believed that the attacks were carried out by criminals. Jin Yong remembers the attack on him the previous night but tries to hide it from his partner. One night, a mysterious man attacks and kills Young-jim in the parking lot, causing sadness among Yo-han and others. When Yo-han meets with Jin Yong after attending Young-jim's funeral, Jin Yong reveals that he suspects the mastermind behind the attack to be Yoon Byung-wook, who works in the prosecutor's investigation unit. Jin Yong explains that their lives and Dal-soo's are in danger if Yo-han does not act immediately to complete the mission and save them. Yo-han has accepted the mission given to him by Jin Yong in order to save his grandmother's life and avenge Young-jim's death. He is now on his way to Songju prison, disguised as a prisoner. Meanwhile, Byung-wook meets with Jin Yong at the office after discovering that he had asked Yo-han to investigate the prison. Jin Yong becomes panicked when he realizes that his plan has been uncovered and attempts to delete the database containing information about the operation that led to Yo-han's expulsion from the prosecutor trainee program. Upon entering the prison, Yo-han is immediately confronted by Woo-song, who holds him responsible for the police raid that led to their imprisonment. In addition to Yo-han, Jae-soon is also supposed to be arrested by the police for gambling on the night that Yo-han begins his mission. However, Jae-soon asks Johan to confess to borrowing his car to go to the gambling establishment, in exchange for which Jae-soon's father will help Johan become a prosecutor once the mission at the prison is complete, and Johan agrees to this arrangement. Upon arriving at his cell, Johan is introduced to the cell leader, Song Do-chul, and the other inmates, who are also serving time for criminal offenses. After introducing himself, Johan is subjected to a round of verbal abuse as part of the cell's welcoming ritual for new inmates. Later, one of the inmates announces that Jong Sun-no, a powerful prisoner, will be conducting an examination of the inmates. As a result, the guards request that Johan and the other inmates leave their cell during the examination. Sun-no and some of the guards take a particular interest in Johan's cell. After leaving the cell, Johan begins his mission to search for Tae-gwang's location within the prison grounds, but he is unable to find him. Later, a warden summons Johan to a room where Woo-sung and his accomplices are collecting compensation money on Hee-doo's orders. Woo-sung forces Johan to pay 1 million won each week, threatening to harm Dal-soo if he refuses. Hee-doo, in turn, has been threatening Dal-soo to repay her grandson's gambling debts and has been mistreating her at his residence when she refuses to comply. Johan, who also refuses to pay the demanded money, is beaten up by Woo-sung and his gang. While in the cell, Do-chul learns about Johan's debt to Hee-doo and decides to offer his assistance. When Johan meets Do-chul in the prison sauna, Do-chul offers to help him earn money within the prison to pay off his debt, on the condition that he agrees to help him win at gambling within the prison. Do-chul also promises to help Johan keep Hee-doo from harassing him and Dal-soo if he accepts his offer. At the Korean prosecutor's building, Jin-young is seen congratulating Jae-soon on his first-place finish in prosecutor training. At lunch, Jae-soon takes Jin-young out to eat with Byung-wook and Jae-soon's father, Hong Sok-wook, who is the chief of the prosecutor's office. During the meal, Sok-wook and Byung-wook offer Jin-young the opportunity to join their team as an intermediate prosecutor. Byung-wook also reminds Jin-young to keep an eye on Johan in prison, who is on a mission from him. Jin-young becomes alarmed as more and more people learn about his plans involving Johan. Meanwhile, Soo-yeon appears to be studying Johan's background, possibly because she is interested in his intelligence and how it might be useful to her in some way. One night, Dal-soo is walking home when she is suddenly chased by a car. Fortunately, Soo-yeon witnesses the incident and helps her escape. In gratitude, Dal-soo invites her back to her home for a small treat. Soo-yeon then calls Johan to inform him that Dal-soo has never visited him in prison, and also mentions that Dal-soo's life is being threatened. She asks Johan to pay Hee-doo the restitution money as soon as possible. Realizing that Dal-soo is still in danger, Johan decides to accept Do-chul's offer to play as a gambler in prison. Do-chul immediately calls Hee-doo to warn him to stop harassing Dal-soo and offers to introduce Tae-gwang to Johan if he becomes the best gambler in prison. Before Johan begins playing, Do-chul explains that the gambling within the prison is facilitated by the guards, who are also eager to participate. The chief warden initially has Tae-gwang represent him at the gambling table, but after Sun-no's arrival, Tae-gwang is defeated and his presence are currently unknown. In Songju Prison, there are 3 gambling leagues. The lowest league is played in the locker room, with cigarettes being used as betting chips. Players who do well in the first league are sent to the second league, which is played in a larger space and uses actual money for betting. Even the wardens are willing to sponsor the best players and split the winnings if they are successful. Players who excel in the second league are then sent to the main league, where they play against Sun-no, who is known as a gambling genius. Every week, players in the main league gamble against important people from outside the prison. Do-chul wants Johan to be able to join the main league and defeat Sun-no. When Do-chul sends Johan to play, the warden is surprised to see a rookie playing, but he proves himself by winning the early rounds, which boosts his confidence for his eventual meeting with Tae-gwang. However, Johan's overconfidence leads to a defeat in the next round of games, and he quickly runs out of capital. In the following days, Johan continues to experience defeat, resulting in punishment from Do-chul in the form of toilet cleaning duty. One night, Dal-soo tries to contact Jin-young for help freeing Johan from prison, but she is disappointed when she is unable to reach him. Later, a boy named Minho asks Dal-soo for help, leading her down a narrow alley where a mysterious man is waiting to kill her. The next day, while participating in a convict activity at a plantation, Johan is approached by Woo-sung and his group, who are demanding that he pay them money. When Johan is unable to pay, Woo-sung and his group take him away, and Do-chul appears indifferent to Johan due to his defeats and loss of money in prison. Rather than allow himself to be beaten, Johan fights back and tries to escape, but his actions result in him being arrested and placed in solitary confinement for committing violence. When Johan is brought to the isolation room, a man in the cell next door offers to teach Johan how to play gambling, but he is not interested and declines the offer. Later, Johan receives news that Dal-soo has committed suicide, but after examining the evidence, he believes that she was actually killed by Jae-soon. When Johan confronts Jae-soon, he confesses the murder, explaining that he committed it out of revenge after Johan targeted his uncle and father during his mission at Hee-doo's gambling establishment. Johan is so angry at this revelation that he hits Jae-soon. Jin-young arrives to break up the fight and orders Jae-soon to leave. He tries to calm down Johan, who has now lost everything, but Johan becomes even more enraged when he learns that Jin-young was involved in the mission. After returning to solitary confinement, Johan decides to seek revenge against those involved in Dal-su's murder and accepts an offer from the man in the next cell to teach him how to play poker. Over the course of his 20 days in solitary confinement, Johan becomes an expert at the card game. When he is released, he begs Do-chul to give him another chance to gamble in prison, promising to defeat all opponents and repay the money he previously lost due to his defeat. Do-chul agrees and Johan returns to the gambling table. His skills have improved significantly and he easily defeats all of his opponents, and becoming a topic of conversation among many people after his big victory. The next day, Do-chul breaks Johan's leg in order to have him sent to the treatment room, where he can more easily keep an eye on Sun-no, who is rumored to be in the prison room. After Johan receives treatment for his broken leg, he begins searching the nursing rooms until he finally finds Sun-no. Johan tries to sneak into the room secretly, but is caught by Sun-no's men and brought to him. Fearlessly, Johan asks Sun-no if he can play in the Major League of Prison Gambling. Sun-no approaches him and tries to remove the bandage on his leg to confirm that he is actually injured. Once he determines that Johan is not pretending, he challenges him to a game with the punishment of an electric shock for the loser. The game involves guessing the cards they have drawn at random. As the game progresses, Sun-no asks about Johan's motivations for seeking him out, which leads to both of them fighting and being electrocuted after Sun-no finds out that Johan lied to him. Johan is unconscious and treated in the prison treatment ward. When he wakes up, he is surprised to see Soo-yeon there. She gives him her business card and offers to help him whenever he needs it. When Johan returns to his cell, Do-chul immediately asks about his investigation about Sun-no, but Johan does not reveal that he has met with him. Later, Johan asks Soo-yeon to find out who is occupying the isolation cell next to him, the man who taught him how to play poker. Using her powers as a VIP prison guest, Soo-yeon is able to ask the warden to bring Johan to the solitary confinement man. When they meet, Johan learns that the man is not Tae-kwon, but rather one of Sun-no's men nicknamed the Professor. Johan enlists the Professor's help to find Tae-kwon, but the Professor does not know Tae-kwon's location. He does help Johan join the second league by persuading the prison security manager, but only if he agrees to give 60% of his winnings. Johan joins the poker players, including Woo-sung and his group, who are known for deceiving other gamblers through coded signals that disrupt the concentration of their opponents. In the first round, Johan is unable to focus and loses. In the second match, Sun-no enters the room to watch the match. Woo-sung's group starts using coded signals with the tapping of coins, which frustrates Johan. He starts doing the same thing, causing the other players to be speechless. Sun-no then uses a code similar to what Johan learned from the Professor. At first, Johan is suspicious of Sun-no's code, afraid that he is setting him up. However, he follows Sun-no's code to see if he is on his side or he trying to deceive him. When the final card is revealed, Johan wins the game, proving that Sun-no is helping him, while also making him confused about why he is doing it. The next day, Johan tells Do-chul about his meeting with Sun-no, but conceals the information about Sun-no's help in winning the gambling game. Do-chul orders Johan to return to the prison hospital to get medicine for his still recovering feet. At the prison treatment room, Johan meets with Sun-no and asks why he helped him win the gambling game. Sun-no explains that he wants to master Korean gambling after being released from prison and needs a trustworthy person like Johan on his team. A few days later, Johan was transferred to a cell with luxurious facilities, like Sun-no, as he had become a major player in the gambling world. Before moving, he said goodbye to his cellmate, Do-chul. Although Johan had changed cells, he still kept in touch with him, until one day, Do-chul asked him to kill Sun-no in exchange for all the sponsorship he had received from him. Johan met with Sun-no to reunite him with Do-chul and his group. At this time, Do-chul ordered Johan to stab Sun-no with a knife that he had provided, but Johan refused the order because he had learned that Do-chul intended to kill him after eliminating Sun-no in prison. As a result, Johan and Sun-no, who had been preparing for a fight with Do-chul's group, seemed harmless as they were both wearing body armor. The fight was interrupted when a warden arrived to break them up. One day, Soo-yeon visited Johan in prison and shared her plan for revenge against Byung-wook and Young-jun, whom she had been after for 20 years. She asked Johan to help her, as they shared the same target for revenge. When he heard about it, he agreed on the condition that she would help him find the person responsible for Dal-su's murder. To make it easier for him to take revenge, she suggested that he become the ruler of the prison. A few days later, Johan, who had joined Sun-no's group, began training to improve his fighting skills by sparring with prisoners who had mastered martial arts. Despite having no prior martial arts experience, Johan persevered and continued to train. Another aspect of his training involved learning card tricks from Nam Dae-moon, a professional con artist who had been jailed for gambling addiction and embezzling company money. Johan was also required to work as a waitress at a gambling establishment for influential people in Korea, where he and Dae-moon, along with other elite prisoners, would deceive the gamblers. As a waitress, Johan was responsible for collecting tips from visitors using the casino's coins. To everyone's surprise, he managed to collect far more coins than Sun-no had expected. Sun-no confided in Johan and shared all of his plans with him, which made Dae-moon angry because he was too open with him, a newcomer to the group. When Soo-yeon visited Johan again, she had visible injuries on her body, but she did not explain how she had gotten them. She informed Johan that she had found Dal-soo's murderer and showed him a video of Jin-young cradling Dal-soo's lifeless body in a meadow. Upon seeing the video, Johan was shocked that the person he had trusted all along had killed his grandmother. Later, when Jin-young visited Johan in prison, he came without asking about his well-being and only concerned with Tae-gwang's video. Johan became angry and shared all the evidence he had that proved Jin-young was Dal-soo's killer. In Johan's imagination, he even attacked and killed Jin-young. Despite Jin-young's defense that someone was trying to frame him for Dal-soo's death, Johan did not believe him and planned to reveal the truth. In addition to collecting more evidence for the murder case, Johan, who wanted to become the master of the prison, continued to train in fighting, even though it left him battered. When Sun-no helped Johan treat his wounds, he encouraged him to fight back, but Johan said he still needed to learn how to fight. Sun-no also shared his suspicions that Dae-moon had bribed someone in the major league of gambling and embezzled money without his knowledge. He asked Johan to find Dae-moon's ledger to prove his suspicions. Unfortunately, when Johan found the ledger, Dae-moon caught him and destroyed it. While practicing card tricks with Dae-moon in a room, Johan suddenly found his body growing weak after taking Dae-moon's medicine, which he now realized had been poisoned. Dae-moon arrived at the door and angrily kicked Johan in the face until he lost consciousness. When Johan woke up, he was in the prison treatment room and Dae-moon explained that he had been poisoned by drinking water contaminated with rat poison and warned him not to get involved in Sun-no's affairs. Meanwhile, Soo-yeon searched Inspector Kwon Dae-il's home for evidence in the Dal-soo murder case and eventually found a phone number that seemed to be related to Dal-soo's death. Young-jun visited the police station and met with Tae-gwang, who had been poisoned and placed in a special room by the prison warden, Ha Song-soo. Sun-no also arrived to greet Young-jun and it was revealed that before being imprisoned, he had worked with him and was punished by being castrated after betraying his boss. Sun-no still held a grudge against Young-jun because of this punishment. Soo-yeon attempted to speak with Min-ho, who she believed knew the perpetrator of Dal-soo's murder, but he seemed terrified and tried to avoid her. Meanwhile, Jin-young continued to search for the person who had filmed him cradling Dal-soo's body, checking all the phone numbers he suspected. One day, Jin-young went to Byung-wook's office to confirm a phone number that he thought belonged to the person who had recorded the incident. When he called the number, Byung-wook's phone rang, revealing that it was him, the person who had filmed the scene to ruin Jin-young and Johan's relationship. When Young-jun was about to leave the prison, he saw Johan carrying a knife and searched for him, asking if he was Sun-no's man. Unfortunately, Young-jun did not find the knife on Johan. After Young-jun left, Dae-moon found the knife and Tae-gwang's recording device on Johan, leading him being punished. Sun-no was thinking about the best strategy to defeat Young-jun, as they had made a deal that required Sun-no to give up his power in the prison if he lost to Young-jun. Sun-no, who realized that Young-jun was more experienced and senior, decided to help Johan because he needed a gambling partner with a difficult-to-guess game technique. When Sun-no rescued and took Johan away from the room where he had been hanged, Dae-moon and his men confronted them, and he said that Johan's punishment was not over. In the tension, a warden arrived and Sun-no grabbed the warden's wand and beat Dae-moon repeatedly until he fell down. The warden and everyone else fell silent after Sun-no declared that he was still in charge of the prison. After saving Johan, Sun-no began teaching him card tricks that were commonly used to deceive opponents, within 3 weeks before the game with Young-jun. Sun-no also told Johan about how he learned to gamble from Young-jun when he was very young. One day, Young-jun and Sun-no played together to defeat an opponent, but he accidentally gave Young-jun the wrong code, leading to a major defeat. As a result, Young-jun challenged Sun-no to a one-on-one fight, causing him to lose and be castrated, unable to play gambling in prison for a year. A few days after learning all the tricks from Sun-no, Johan finally began to master them, preparing him and Sun-no to face Young-jun. Before the gambling match, Sun-no visited Dae-moon, who was still being treated in the hospital treatment room after the incident. Sun-no told him that he had learned that Dae-moon had embezzled his money, leaving him speechless. Dae-moon then asked Sun-no about Johan, who would be Sun-no's successor as the ruler in the prison, but he did not answer the question and walked away from the room. One night, Young-jun and his partner arrive at the prison to have a gambling match with Sun-no. Meanwhile, Johan and Sun-no are also heading towards the room where the match is being held. As the game begins, Sun No acts as the dealer and asks Johan to continue playing, hoping to uncover the trick that Yong-jun is using. The game goes on late into the night, and when Johan becomes the dealer, he cheats, causing Yong-jun to threaten him. At the same time, Sun No catches Yong-jun's partner cheating by hiding cards up his sleeve. With the evidence of cheating on their side, Sun No threatens to release a tape that would ruin Yong-jun's reputation, unless he agrees to release him and Johan. In the end, Yong-jun decides to let them go. A month later, Johan visits Sun No's room and finds it empty, leading him to suspect that he has been released from prison. Meanwhile, Dae-moon asks Song-soo about Johan's location, wanting to get rid of him as he sees Johan as a barrier to his control of the prison. Song-soo simply tells him that Johan has become Sun No's successor and is now the ruler of the prison. Dae-moon then meets with Johan in a luxurious cell within the prison and asks him to relinquish his powers to him. Dae-moon later gathers his men and orders them to bow down to Johan, explaining that he has learned that Johan will not take the share of the revenue from the Major League gambling and instead he will give half of it to him. Woo-song refuses to bow down to Johan and decides to leave instead. Meanwhile, Jin-young has learned the identity of Soo-yeon, who is a deceitful businesswoman known for posing as a bar owner and tricking many influential figures. As the new successor to Sun No, Johan is determined to seek revenge and knows that he needs the help of important connections, including the VIP inmates who are the leaders of the Sin-sun-dong gang. However, Song-soo advises him not to get in contact with these inmates as it could put him in danger. When one of the guards catches Johan trying to enter Sin-sun-dong's cell, he explains that not everyone, including the guards, is allowed to access the VIP cell. Johan then tries to trick the warden, but his plan is foiled when a man named Do Won-bong, who Johan thought was a janitor, came to meet him. Song-soo greets the man, revealing that he is actually a VIP prison inmate. Won-bong is a former loan shark with significant influence in many major companies in South Korea, despite his advanced age. He meets with Soo-yeon, but when she asks him to allow Johan to join the Sin-sun-dong gang, he firmly rejects her request. After their meeting, Soo-yeon leaves the prison and is secretly photographed by a man as she exits the gates. The man sends the picture to Jae-soon. When Soo-yeon arrives home, she sees a row of photos of people who are her targets for revenge. The next day, Soo-yeon tells Johan that she has discovered Min-ho's location, but she won't be able to see him that day as she is being followed by Jae-soon. Meanwhile, Johan meets with an inmate named Shim Jae-chul, who works in the Sin-sun-dong gang, and breaks Jae-chul's leg so he can take his place and work directly with Won-bong. Won-bong is forced to hire Johan on the condition that he must behave responsibly while completing his assigned tasks. The next day, Won-bong asks Johan to deliver a document to a specific location within half a day. Desperate to get his job done and see Min-ho, Johan sets out to fulfill the task, but is unable to get any help from Soo-yeon as she is still being followed by Jae-soon. Instead, she sends the police to assist him in completing the mission given to him by Won-bong. While on his mission, Johan runs into Hee-do, who is preparing to attack him at a casino. However, a battered man named Woo Sang-ki, the accountant for the Goldman Casino, comes to Johan's aid and claims that he is a messenger for Woo Bong. The two manage to escape Hee-do's pursuit with the help of Park Ro-sa, a policewoman who arrests Hee-do. Hee-do's men, who learn of his capture, try to chase after the police car that is taking him away, but Hee-do ultimately escapes. Meanwhile, Sang-ki and Johan finally meet with Soo-yeon, who helps Sang-ki and asks Johan to find Min-ho, the key witness to Dal-soo's murder. After following Soo-yeon's directions, Johan rushes to a school where Min-ho is hiding. As he tries to take Min-ho away, Hee-do reappears, having followed him using a tracking device he planted on his shirt. Johan and Min-ho try to escape Hee-do's pursuit until they reach a parking lot. Min-ho offers to help Johan on the condition that he saves his father, Sang-ki, who is with Soo-yeon. Just as Johan and Min-ho are trying to find another place to hide, a car driven by Yong-hwa crashes into Min-ho, killing him on impact. Johan is once again cornered by Hee-do and Yong-hwa, but is rescued by Soo-yeon, who tells him to get in the car immediately. Yong-hwa then tries to catch Johan by climbing onto Soo-yeon's car and hindering her ability to drive. After narrowly escaping Yong-hwa, Soo-yeon is pursued by Jae-soon's car as he suspects Johan is with her. When Soo-yeon stops her car, Jae-soon finds Ro-sa and forces her to let Soo-yeon go. Meanwhile, Johan returns to prison on time, but Won-bong is angry with him for causing chaos that could provoke the anger of the Young brothers and threaten his life, despite the successful delivery of the document. 24 years ago, the Young brothers were fake cosmetics sellers who took over Won-bong's casino by having him thrown in jail. They also worked with a prosecutor to make it easier to run the casino business. In the present, Byung-wook is seen having a meeting with the Young brothers and Jae-soon at a secret location. As a new member, Byung-wook learns that Johan is working with Won-bong and is concerned that Won-bong will seek revenge. Jae-soon shows Soo-yeon's photo to the group and Yong-jun seems to recognize her. Byung-wook then asks the Young brothers to resolve all the trouble they've caused. Meanwhile, Jae-soon is tasked with shutting down the illegal gambling establishment at Songju prison. Yong-hwa, who was involved in Min-ho's death, asks Hee-do to take the blame, but he refuses and beats up Yong-hwa's men. Jae-soon is angry about failing to catch Yo-han and asks the inmates to join him in fighting Yo-han, but they all refuse. One day, Jae-soon receives a secret letter from the professor, who offers to help him in exchange for a reward. With the professor's assistance, Jae-soon goes to Songju prison on the night of a gambling game, causing everyone to start cleaning up the gambling items. Some of the guards try to buy time so Jae-soon doesn't enter before all the evidence is hidden, and Yo-han even burns some of the gambling equipment. When Jae-soon arrives at the warden's office where the gambling took place, the room is tidy and free of any gambling items, so he is unable to do anything. As a result, Jae-soon attempts to send the warden responsible for dismantling illegal gambling in Songju prison away, and once all illegal activities in the prison are exposed, Yo-han is no longer the ruler of the prison because he has lost the privileges gained from the gambling league. All the inmates return to their cells, including Yo-han, who is now back in a cell with Do-chul. When Yo-han enters Do-chul's cell, all the residents are prepared to beat him up. However, Yo-han's improved martial skills allow him to defeat everyone, leaving Do-chul dead after being accidentally killed by his own men. Yo-han, who didn't commit any murders, is vilified by all of Do-chul's members, putting him in danger of being transferred to another prison. To avoid this, Yo-han meets with Won-bong for help and is offered the condition of killing Sang-ki after his release from prison. Yo-han is conflicted, as he still feels guilty for Min-ho's death and decides to leave Won-bong's place without answering the offer. At night, Yo-han checks Min-ho's social media and is shocked to find a video of Min-ho removing the mask worn by Dal-su's murderer, revealing that Sun-no, who has been helping him, is the one who killed his grandmother. Yo-han contemplates his fate of being transferred to another prison and realizes that no one, including Jin-yo, can help him. The only person who can save him is Won-bong. As Yo-han is about to be transferred, he begs Won-bong to save him, even if it means having to kill Sang-ki after his release. Won-bong finally accepts his request and he is not transferred. Yo-han understands why Sun-no, a former subordinate of Won-bong, is willing to do dirty jobs, because he has no other choice, just like him. One day, Won-bong, who holds a lot of power in the prison, is seen kneeling before the Sin Sun-dong elder, begging for help in reclaiming Skin Nation from the Yang brothers, due to the changing situation in the prison. He asks the elder to release Yo-han, his errand boy, immediately. His request is granted, and Yo-han is released from prison, working for Won-bong so he can be easily tracked down. Following Won-bong's orders, lawyer Gu Ban-chul takes Yo-han to capture and kill Sang-ki, who has caused problems in South Korea's gambling industry because he has a record of illicit funds that Won-bong can use to regain control of Skin Nation. Meanwhile, Byung-wook, Sang-wook, and the Yang brothers meet with Annie Stevens, the director of a casino in Macau who is involved in illicit gambling activities. Annie becomes angry with their presence at the meeting because they have been unable to effectively manage the casino and prevent it from losing some of its illicit funds to Skin Nation. During the meeting, Byung-wook blames the Yang brothers for the casino's mismanagement, leading to a fight between the two parties. In prison, Won-bong is excited about Yo-han's success in killing Sang-ki, and he orders him to go to Goldman Casino to play gambling. Afterward, Yo-han plans to meet with Soo-yeon at a secret location, but it turns out that Sang-ki has also joined them because Yo-han did not actually kill him. Ban-chul, who was assigned by Won-bong to oversee Yo-han's work, discovers this and decides to team up with him after he tells him that Won-bong will kill them both once he regains control of Skin Nation. During their meeting, Yo-han, Soo-yeon, and Sang-ki discuss the complexity of the case they are investigating, including the fact that Dae-il, who had been contacted by Min-ho, has been killed. At the same time, Won-bong meets with Byung-wook and Sang-wook to persuade them to turn against the Yang brothers and join him in his plan to take over Skin Nation. The two prosecutors agree to Won-bong's request because they both have a strained relationship with the Yang brothers and are tempted by the rewards that he offers. Later, Won-bong asks Yo-han to gamble with a gambling addict, who holds a stake in Goldman Casino, with the stake as the bet. After winning the game, the man finally agrees to transfer the ownership of Goldman Casino shares to Yo-han. Meanwhile, the Yang brothers are seen in a meeting, discussing Byung-wook's apparent desire to have Yo-han killed. Hee-do, who was arrested for disobeying Yong-hwa's orders, is also present at the meeting. Not long after, Yong-hwa appears, angry at Hee-do and ready to torment him. As Yo-han sat in his house, deep in thought about how to master a casino, he was reminded of Sun-no's advice to focus on the top-floor suite of the casino hotel, a VIP area only accessible by invitation. Meanwhile, Young-jun was busy preparing for the launch party of Skin Nation, with the help of Woo-song, a subordinate recently released from prison. As Yo-han continued to do the work requested by Won-bong, he was suddenly followed by a mysterious man who intended to attack him. Ban-chul, noticing the danger, stepped in to help him escape and revealed that the attackers were actually messengers working for Jin-young. As Dae-moon was released from prison, he was feeling frustrated after a losing streak at number gambling. Woo-sung approached him and brought him to meet Young-jun, who offered him money in exchange for information about Yo-han. Dae-moon eagerly complied, spilling all that he knew about Yo-han to Young-jun before leaving with the gift money. Woo-sung used this information to track down Yo-han at a small gambling establishment and deliver an invitation to play in the VIP suite at the casino. When Watbonk learned of this, he was thrilled at the prospect of Yo-han winning illicit funds from the Goldman Casino. Yo-han met with Sun-no to discuss the upcoming gambling match in the VIP suite. Meanwhile, Young-hwa was upset with Young-jun for inviting Yo-han, especially after learning that Soo-yeon had helped him. Little did they know, Young-jun's true plan was to kill Yo-han. The following day, Yo-han receives a VIP invitation to a gambling event. Despite facing tough competition, he manages to come out on top in several rounds, impressing the other players. However, Young-jun is not interested in playing against Yo-han at the gambling table. His attention is instead focused on Soo-yeon, who has accompanied him to the event. When Yo-han teases Soo-yeon, pretending not to know her, Young-jun becomes annoyed and decides to challenge him at the gambling table. However, Yo-han's playing skills have improved significantly, and he easily defeats Young-jun, even tricking him into making a bet of 1.6 billion. Young-jun becomes suspicious, thinking that Yo-han must have made some kind of secret agreement with other players in order to win so easily. He becomes particularly suspicious of Chairman Soo and Chairman Cha, who were present at the event. In reality, Yo-han had been planning his big win for some time. He had met with Chief Cha and Chief Soo before the game day, and the two had agreed to help him get Goldman back from Young-jun. His victory at the gambling table was the result of careful planning and strategy, not any kind of secret agreement. A high-stakes gambling game between Young-jun and Yo-han reached a fever pitch as Young-jun bet $80 billion on the VIP room. Yo-han, with a trick up his sleeve thanks to the information provided by Soo-yeon, eagerly accepted the challenge. As the final card was about to be revealed, Yo-han produced a card seemingly out of nowhere, much to the surprise of his opponents. Earlier, Yo-han had met with Jin-young, who was working with Yoon Byung-wook to capture him. Jin-young explained that he had to go along with Byung-wook's plan in order to stay in Seoul, even though he wasn't sure why Byung-wook wanted to arrest Yo-han. Yo-han revealed that Byung-wook was protecting the Young brothers and the illicit funds at the casino and would stop at nothing to get rid of him. To perfect his plan, Yo-han enlisted the help of Dae-moon to trick Sun-no into joining his game and also asked Jin-young to arrest director Jin So-min, Skin Nation's accountant. With everything falling into place, Yo-han was poised to take down the corrupt casino and bring justice to those involved. As the gambling game reached its climax, Yo-han pulled out an ace from his sleeve and managed to win the VIP room, much to the shock of his opponents. Meanwhile, Young-hwa and So-min were meeting with Annie and the head of the casino in Macau to discuss the illicit funds of the Young brothers. Annie revealed that Sang-ki was still alive and fled to Japan, and she blamed Young-hwa for not preventing it. In an effort to appease the Macau side, Young-hwa offered to provide an illicit flow of funds from the Goldman Casino, totaling 300 billion, to the casinos in Macau. The head of the Macau casino threatened to kill the Young brothers if the flow of funds stopped. In the parking lot, Sun-no and Dae-moon were preparing to kidnap So-min, but Jin-young arrived with So-min making Sun-no lost track of her. Dae-moon informed Soo-yeon that Sun-no had fallen into their trap. With everything falling into place, the stage was set for the final showdown between Yo-han and the corrupt forces behind the casino. In the VIP room, Young-jun threatened those present, demanding to know who had paid the dealer to cheat. To protect the dealer, Soo-yeon pulled out her gun and shot Young-jun in the leg, revealing her true identity. Yo-han and Soo-yeon then disguised themselves and brought him to a warehouse. As Soo-yeon tried to leave the warehouse, she was confronted by members of the Buk-young-pa gang. Hee-do, who had joined forces with Yo-han, came to his aid and offered him the position of leader of the Buk-young-pa gang, as he had been mistreated by Young-hwa. Meanwhile, Young-jun was rescued by his men, and upon reviewing the casino's CCTV footage, he ordered them to arrest Yo-han, Sun-no, and Soo-yeon in exchange for 100 million won. As Yo-han faced off against Young-hwa, he applied a drug that caused Young-hwa to convulse, buying time for Soo-yeon to copy all the data about the Goldman Casino onto So-min's phone. With the help of Sang-ki's information, Yo-han was able to access Young-hwa's Goldman Casino account and transfer 300 million won to the company's account in Woo Min-ho's name. Meanwhile, Dae-moon, who was with Sun-no, suddenly froze and left his side as a police officer arrived. With all the pieces falling into place, Yo-han and his allies were closing in on their goal of taking down the corrupt casino and bringing justice to those involved. As Yo-han made his escape, he hailed a taxi driven by his friend, Jae-soon. He revealed that he was on Yo-han's side and agreed to take him to meet with Soo-yeon and Jin-young. Yo-han asked Jin-young to take So-min to a safe location and release her, while he and Soo-yeon searched for Dae-moon. Meanwhile, Sun No, who was previously caught by the police, is handed over to the Young brothers after being accused of being So Min's kidnapper, based on CCTV footage. The brothers torture Sun No in an attempt to find out So Min's location. Soon after, Johan arrives to exchange the illicit funds he had previously transferred to Sun No. Young Hua, skeptical of Johan's intentions, throws a knife at Sun No's leg. In response, Johan threatens to donate all the illicit funds to charity. The brothers, unwilling to lose the money, agree to hand over Sun No to Johan and also give him a cell phone with a company account in Woo Min Ho's name. On the way after rescuing Sun No, Johan meets Soo-yeon and puts Sun No in the trunk of her car, knowing that the Young brothers will be pursuing them. In the car, Soo-yeon asks Johan about the illicit funds that he handed back to the Young brothers, fearing that Won-bong will be angry. He explains that the funds are safe because Yo Kong, a financial transaction expert, helped him move the company's account to a personal account in Woo Min Ho's name, causing the balance in the account given to the Young brothers to be automatically emptied. She looks amazed at his intelligence in securing the illicit funds. The next day, Johan questions Sun No about Dal-su's death, but he refused to admit to killing her and instead accused Jin-young of being Dae-il's killer. Sun No then attempted to commit suicide, but Johan stopped him. He then called Won-bong to tell him that he had secured Goldman Casino's illicit funds, but Won-bong, who was being treated for his illness, was not pleased and ordered Bon-chul to kill Johan, as his job was done. When Johan visits Won-bong, he is confused to find that his name is not listed among the shareholders at Goldman Casino, and realizes that he has deceived him by changing the name of the shareholder to his name. Johan reveals that Bon-chul has been working for him, and even becomes Won-bong's replacement after being fired from the Sinsan-dong gang. With his newfound power, Johan orders Bon-chul to take Won-bong to a location where Sun No is supposed to kill him. However, Sun No is unable to follow through with the plan and faints before he can stab Won-bong. Moments later, Young Jun arrives and takes Sun No and Won-bong with him, having obtained the location from Bon-chul. On the other hand, Young Hua and her men attack Johan's house, but they run into Jae-soon, who plans to capture Young Hua, who has been hindering Johan's plans. Annie is also seen visiting Young Hua in the interrogation room and informing him that the Young brothers have been fired from Goldman Casino's management for eliminating the casino's illicit funds. Later, Johan meets with Annie, impressing her with his work and earning a promotion to boss at Goldman Casino. As time passes, Sang-wook is seen leading a meeting to discuss reports of corrupt prosecutors, who pose a threat to Sang-wook and Byung-wook's reputations. After the meeting, Byung-wook meets with Annie at a bar to ask for payment for the protection of Goldman, but she refuses, citing the change in casino management under Johan's leadership. Meanwhile, Johan seems to be discussing a revenge plan with Soo-yeon, with Byung-wook as their first target. Moments later, Jae-soon, assigned by Byung-wook, brings Johan to meet with him, who is curious about why Johan is targeting him. Johan tries to deceive Byung-wook by claiming that he is actually targeting Jin-young and wants Byung-wook to work with him to send Jin-young to a distant location. At the same time, Jin-young becomes anxious, suspecting that Johan is after him now. He taps into Johan's workspace to confirm that his target is Byung-wook. Johan realizes he is being spied on and does not reveal all his plans. In the wiretap, Jin-young also learns that Johan and Soo-yeon argued because he wanted to use the law to take revenge against Byung-wook. When Jin-young plans to give proof of the recording in Byung-wook's room, Byung-wook suddenly informs him that he has been transferred to a remote village, causing him to become angry and forget about the recording he was going to give. On another occasion, Johan asks Jin-young to arrest all the inmates from the Sinsan-dong gang who have VIP privileges. When Jin-young arrives at the prison, he realizes that the inmates he meets are not the leaders of the Sinsan-dong gang, as Soo-yeon had previously informed the chief warden of Jin-young's plan. Soo-yeon also meets with Sinsan-dong gang officials and declares that she wants to become their trusted ally, having broken off her cooperation with Johan. All of these actions are part of Johan and Soo-yeon's plan to make the two seem hostile. To further convince Sinsan-dong gangs, Soo-yeon invites Jin-young to join as her right-hand man. Soo-yeon also tells Young Jun and Won-bong, who have joined the Young brothers, that she has betrayed Johan and become the new trusted ally of Sinsan-dong, even confessing that she will seize the position of manager at Goldman Casino. A few days later, Young Jun manages to help Young Hua escape from prison. Young Hua, suspicious of Young Jun's assistance from Soo-yeon, asks Won-bong to meet with her. During the meeting, Soo-yeon reveals that Johan is planning to report Byung-wook for sedition and murder, but Won-bong instead reveals that he knows that Soo-yeon and Johan are pretending to be hostile towards each other. A panicked Soo-yeon pulls out a gun and points it at Won-bong, but he calmly states that she cannot kill him before leaving. As Won-bong is in the elevator, he collapses due to the poison that Soo-yeon had placed on a gun that he had previously held. Soo-yeon finds out and recloses Won-bong's mouth, causing him to die. On the other hand, Johan meets with Byung-wook to inform him that he has been kicked out of the Sinsan-dong gang due to Soo-yeon. Byung-wook seems unaware of all the plans that Yo-han is trying to bring down, including his cooperation with prosecutor Kim Woo-jae. Meanwhile, Annie's position in the Macau casino office has been replaced by Miss Lam, who announces that she will give the Goldman casino manager seat to whoever can kill Yo-han. The brothers, who are aware of this, are determined to reclaim the manager's chair that Yo-han had taken. At the same time, Soo-yeon is seen stuffing Won-bong's corpse into the trunk of her car. At the casino, Yo-han and Dae-moon are worried because Soo-yeon has not returned and has not reported anything to them either. Not long after, a member of the Buk-young-pa gang enters the room and tells Yo-han that he needs to meet someone. Yo-han is escorted to a location. On the way, Yo-han receives a message from Soo-yeon and asks the driver to stop the car so he can contact her using a payphone. Soo-yeon tells Yo-han that Won-bong received a message from Annie about Miss Lam's plan to have all parties kill Yo-han and urges him to run away immediately. After learning about the threat, Yo-han tries to escape from the Buk-young-pa gang until he is eventually rescued by Soo-yeon. Meanwhile, Hee-do and his men arrive at Goldman Casino, intent on seizing Yo-han's power. Dae-moon quickly copies all the data on the computer and then deletes it, so Hee-do can't use it. While on the road, Soo-yeon admits that she was uncertain about what to do after killing Won-bong. Soon after, Yo-han receives a call from Hee-do, who has taken Dae-moon hostage and demands that he come to the casino immediately. When Yo-han arrives, Hee-do plans to kill him, but the casino lights suddenly go out, giving him the chance to save Dae-moon. At the same time, the young brothers, who want their power at Goldman Casino back, are seen killing all of Hee-do's men. As Young-jun is about to attack Yo-han, Woo-sung, who wants power for himself, betrays Young-jun by stabbing him. As Hee-do watched Jong-hwa brutally murder Woo-sung, he decided to flee the scene. Meanwhile, Dae-moon gave his life to protect Yo-han and handed over the file he had copied earlier. Tragically, Jae-soon was killed by Hee-do while investigating Soo-yeon at the casino. Yo-han became the most wanted criminal in South Korea as a result of the chaos at the casino, and Soo-yeon struggled to get in touch with him. Just as she saw on the news that she too was now a wanted fugitive, Soo-yeon rushed to the prosecutor's office and confronted Byung-wook, revealing her true identity as Lee Han-soo. It was Byung-wook who had killed her mother and sold her into prostitution when she was 16. Enraged, Soo-yeon aimed her gun at Byung-wook, but Yo-han managed to calm her down before any shots were fired. A few hours before arriving at the prosecutor's office, Yo-han met with Tae-gwang and obtained a video that he had been hiding. He then reported Byung-wook to the police. Later, Byung-wook received a call from Woo-jae, asking him to meet Yo-han and Soo-yeon at the casino. When Byung-wook arrived, he saw Jin-yeon, who he thought was on his side, but he ultimately betrayed him. Young-hwa also testified against Byung-wook, revealing their past cooperation in killing several people. Yo-han presented videos of Byung-wook and Annie discussing their corrupt activities. Despite Byung-wook's warning that Annie could still pose a threat to Yo-han, he was undeterred, knowing that she no longer had any power. Miss Lam, who was now working with Yo-han, then arrived with Annie in tow. With overwhelming evidence and numerous witnesses against him, Byung-wook was cornered and had no choice but to confess to all of his crimes and apologize to the victims. Even Sang-wook, who had previously cooperated with Byung-wook, withdrew his support after his son died following orders from him to investigate Soo-yeon. Desperate, Byung-wook tried to take his own life, but Yo-han stopped him, telling him that he must live with the agony of his actions for the rest of his life. Byung-wook was eventually tried and found guilty, and Yo-han testified against him in court. Now that Byung-wook was officially a suspect and had been imprisoned, Yo-han set his sights on Jin-yeon, who had killed Dae-il. While Byung-wook was imprisoned, he was suddenly kidnapped by Hee-do's men. Soo-yeon, determined to get revenge, arrived on the scene and killed Hee-do and all of his men. She then shot Byung-wook in the leg and injected him with a poisonous liquid that would haunt his mental health. She was not satisfied with the punishment that he had received and wanted to continue torturing him. During a meeting with Jin-yeon, Yo-han learned that he had received a promotion thanks to the Sin-sun-dong gang and had played a role in Woo-sung's betrayal of Young-jun. The next day, Yo-han was seen kidnapped by a group of unknown individuals. While Soo-yeon had turned herself into the police and was on her way to a detention cell. Jin-yeon, on the other hand, received a mysterious message from someone who promised to get rid of Yo-han and Soo-yeon and asked him to meet them. Jin-yeon quickly made his way to the designated meeting place, only to be shocked when Young-hwa appeared. Meanwhile, Yo-han was approached by a young man named Lim Seung-boom from the National Intelligence Agency, who had his sights set on Miss Lam and asked for his cooperation. As the story came to an end, Yo-han realized that the coveted position of Goldman casino manager would continue to elude him, despite the efforts of many others to claim it. The moral of this drama is that bad deeds will ultimately be punished.